Welcome to Taking Off the Mask. My name is Ashanti Branch, and I'm really glad to be here with you today. Today's conversation, you're going to hear a conversation between me and a young man from Brazil. This conversation actually was one of the first recordings ever, as I had been envisioning what it would look like to have a podcast and to be in conversation with men and young men around the world in this work that we've been doing around masks, around being more of our true, authentic selves, around looking behind the facade that we create or have created so that people don't judge us or stay connected to us. And so throughout the COVID end of the school year, the young men we were working with in high school, I brought them together for a weekly session just to have a space to reflect and come and talk about what things were going on in their lives and how they were navigating the school and system and those applying for college and all the things that people were going to miss out on because the world was going to look very different. And I had invited Breno from Brazil because he's a young man I've been working with for a couple of years. And none of the young men from the United States, right here in my own area, none of them showed up. So I was kind of like frustrated and I was like, what? But my job is, even when no one shows up, you stay present with those that are there. And so I told Breno, we were talking, and I told him about an idea I had about a podcast. And I said, let's test it out. He's like, sure. And so the episode you're going to hear is not planned. It was no special recordings. It was me and him on Zoom. And so I want you to take it in as a test. It was a prototype. But what you're going to hear in this conversation is Breno come to an understanding of how he shows up in the world, the ways that he, in stories of his past, have built him to who he is today, the things he's really excited about and passionate about right now in the world. And this conversation just lets us to recognize that we are not alone and that there's so many people all over the world that are going through similar things, that are wondering many things, that are challenged by many things, and you're going to hear him tell some of his personal story. And so welcome to this opportunity to hear from men and boys and people around the world who recognize that we're not alone. They may think they're alone, but once they begin to talk about it and hear stories from others, they will realize that there's more going on with people than we can see from the outside. And so the Taking Off the Mask journey begins. And we hope that you will continue to come again and subscribe and see what we're up to in this work. We believe that the more that we can help people around the world realize that they are not alone, the more that we can build healthy communities, healthy families, and definitely in our work in education in schools and organizations, healthy connections with others. Enjoy. Welcome to the call, man.
Hey.
We've been here about 40 minutes already, and I was deciding whether I was going to record the call or not. But one of the things I was thinking about, one of the things that we're trying to do in Ever Forward is I've been trying to, not only in Ever Forward, but just in my own work, I've been really trying to create spaces where we, men and young men, and the work that we do with Ever Forward and the work that we do around the world, like how do we create an engaging experience? So one of the things I wanted to do, and this is maybe like a prototype of that, what would it look like for for me to set up a conversation with somebody from around the world? I only speak English and Spanish, so they got to speak one of those two languages for now. And Portuguese is next. I trust that Portuguese is next.
Great.
And we come together and we do a Zoom call and we really just like get real. Like, it could be, the conversation can be short, but it's, well, how could we use this idea of these masks to create connection? That's our goal, right? I think our goal, the campaign was not really, it didn't start because I wanted to collect 100,000 cards. It didn't start with cards. It started with, 8 young men in a room trying to build connection. That's what it was about, And I think what I wanted to do is to test out a model that would allow us to do this to create a podcast, like a podcast that I've been wanting to create, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so how about, let me have you introduce yourself. And so that at least on the video, we have your introduction, like who you are, where you're from, like what are you up to in the world? How about you just introduce yourself? And then maybe we can just prototype what it would look like to do this experience.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right.
So, yeah, I'm Breno. I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm 18. I just finished high school in December. And yeah, recently I've been very, very, very passionate about trying to understand like how we can use evidence to do the most good in our lives. So I've been connected with this community called effective altruism, like people that are really trying to understand like the world's most pressing issues and trying to tackle them. And on the other side, like on the side of not just doing, but on the side of reflecting, I'm trying like for the past years, trying to use philosophy to understand how to live a good life. And philosophy, like I don't know much of all schools, but one that I've been studying a lot is Stoicism. I don't know if you are connected with Stoic philosophy.
I know about philosophy a little bit. I mean, but not. I haven't studied. I mean, I studied a philosophy course before, but yeah. What philosophers are? Or is it any philosopher in particular, or just the idea of philosophy?
No, so yeah, there are many different schools of philosophy, and I don't know like most of them. The one that I've been studying for the past years, it's called Stoicism. And Stoicism is like this ancient school of thought. It started like 200 years before Christ. It started with Zeno of Sicyon. He was um, this merchant on ancient Greece that he was like traveling, selling his goods, and then his ship crashed and he lost like everything that he was selling. And then he started like really reflecting about how much his ship crashing was outside his control and that he couldn't control the situation of the weather or all of these different things that were happening that made his ship crash. So he was founding this school of thought called Stoicism that the main the main idea is that we don't control things that are outside us that are external to us, and we just mainly in their idea is that we control our thoughts, our actions, our behaviors, but even though sometimes we can't control it. For example, we can't control if we have a disease, we can control even if we have like mental health issues sometimes, and that influence some of our actions. But beside that, if you are not suffering from any disease or if you are not suffering all those things, most of your actions, most of your thoughts are some things that you have most of control over it. So how to spend your life trying to understand that and to discern these things, you can live a calmer life full of stillness and yeah, very, very, very calm life. The end goal of Stoicism is achieved what they call this ancient Greek word called ataraxia.
Mm-hmm.
Ataraxia is like this idea of this deep state of calmness. Like can have the word can be in chaos, like a lot of things can be happening in your life, but in a way you are calm because you know the things that you can control, you know the things that like so if someone hit your car or if you are stuck in traffic, you're not going to complain that you are stuck in traffic is just something that affects not just you but affects a lot of people. It's totally outside your control, it's totally outside of like all those things,
Right.
and complaining about that just that makes sense. But yeah, I've been focusing a lot on the effective altruism movement and also on trying to understand my life with philosophy.
So it's interesting. It's a great question to like maybe even start with is like, because traffic is a fact of life, it exists. So why complain about it? why do people complain about it? Doesn't complaining about it kind of give us a little bit of relief from the like let's say you just say, look, there's no sense in complaining about it because it's just there. What are you gonna do about it? I mean, you can try and go around it or use ways and find a different direction, but why complain about it? And I wonder, that's a great question because I complain about traffic. Actually, it's a personal question. I complain about traffic all the time. What the heck is going on here? Why are these people going so slow, right? Well, they have to go slow because the person in front of them is going slow, and on and on and on until the first car that, so like what are the layers of those things that we talk about that we can't do anything about? There's this old teaching that says, if there's a problem that you experience and you can fix it, then it's not a problem. You just need to go ahead and solve it. And if you can't solve it, then it's a fact of life, and there's no sense in talking about it anyway, right? So the layers between the things that we can do something about and things that we can't, Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for checking in. Thank you for letting us know who you are. And I think one of the things I want to experiment with, and this is new and we've not done this before, so you'll be the first, right, to be a part of this experience, right? Have you created a mask? How long ago was it? Because when I met you, we go way back. So Breno and I know each other through Marcelino, or Marcelo?
Marcelo.
Marcelo is one of his mentors when he was a sophomore or junior. And Marcelo saw the documentary The Mask You Live In, and then reached out to me and said, hey, I'm working with some boys at the school. I want to do an activity with them and watch the documentary. I'm like, yeah, I'll show you how to do it. And then he did The Mask You Live In. He did the 100,000 Mask Challenge, which was just making masks from pieces of paper at the time, throwing them at each other. That was the time. And when you all watched the documentary, I think I have some of those pictures. I should probably insert one of those pictures right now of Breno when he was like 3 years younger. And then we began to have this conversation. We began to talk and we began to connect, And so, and I think I imagine Marcelo told you about one of the boys in that circle, maybe a year later or a few months later, took his life, and I think that was something that when I heard that, it really resonated with me. Like when I read the cards and the mass in Portuguese, I didn't really know what they all said. I just knew that, that there was some deep feeling happening there, with him as the mentor, with some of the other young men who knew him. Did you know the boy?
He was one of my best friends. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that.
Don't worry about it. That makes a lot of sense because, like, talking about him, he was someone that the idea of the masks, when we think about what is in front of the mask, for him was always someone that is smiling, always someone that you see that person and you say, like, he's happy, he has everything. Like on school, we were out, like we were friends for 6 years or something like that, like for a lot of time, and he was always happy. And like 1 year, he took his life on the first day of August 2017, and like since 1 year, a few months before that, he started sharing with me what he had been going through with depression, with all those things, and some stories that happened with him in those years that were giving him a lot of negative thoughts and were giving him a lot of negative experiences and some difficulties that he was having to communicate with other people. And I started like really being closer to him. And like I think I mentioned to you, that for 3 years I worked on that I found this project called Construindo Futuro. That was mainly about promoting sustainable development in schools and communities in Brazil. And he was also not just one of my best friends, but also the co-founder of Construindo Futuro. So it was like we shared this sense of we have a lot of privileges we want to give back to the world, and we were trying to do that together.
Yeah.
And then like this situation, like it was really something that stuck with me. And when you talk about like of that session that we had with Marcelo, that day was the day that I decided that he was like that I wanted to invite someone to be a co-founder, because I needed someone to start with me. That day of the session, I invited him, asked Marcelo like some tips, and Marcelo said, "Yeah, I needed a co-founder to start this." And I started like for the first time, like, so it was 2017 until 2017, the middle of the year, until I read that book, Ego is the Enemy. Until there, I have a lot of problems with ego, with trying to receive recognition, with trying to be recognized like as the best or something like that. And sharing a position of leadership
Yeah.
was something that was really hard for me, because I always wanted to receive attention or something. So with you one was a growth opportunity for me, because it was the first time, and after that session, reflecting and asking João to be the co-founder of the project was something for me that it was really a different initiative that I took in my life, of sharing leadership, of trying to share my responsibilities, of sharing all the recognition that I would receive later, that for me doesn't matter today. And I think one of the things that I wrote on I always forget the right name for that in English, for the back of the mask, like and behind the mask, and like what was always behind the mask for me was this sense of wanting to be recognized, like all the time. This sense, not just that, but the anxiety that drives, and that is something that connected me even more with stoicism, with the philosophy that I was talking about. Because when I said that this book, Ego is the Enemy, changed me, the author of this book, he writes a lot about Stoic philosophy, and I just met, because of this book, Stoicism, and I started reading Marcus Aurelius, that is this Roman emperor, but at the same time he was a philosopher. He wanted to not be an emperor, but he wanted to know how to live good. He wanted to be a good human being every day, a better human being. So like all of this, that day, exactly the day of the workshop. It's funny, that day of the workshop coincidentally was the day that I discovered the book on the institute that we were having the workshop. So yeah, I'm so grateful for you, because indirectly you impacted my life so much with helping Marcelo doing that. And if Marcelo didn't do it, I would not get the book. I would not share the leadership for the first time. And that's just coming to my mind right now, and how much we are, even sometimes not directly connected on that day, we were totally connected indirectly. And you really helped me, like you really helping me a lot, helping Marcelo, and with that, like, yeah, this.
Oh man, that's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know any of that story, and that's really amazing. I was actually just giving a shout out to Marcelo, and so thank you, Marcelo. Hopefully at some point you may see this, but that's so I think there's this quote by Steve Jobs where he talks about you can't put the dots together going forward, right? Like you can only put the dots together looking back. Like when you look back and you're like, oh, that's why I went there. And then, oh, then I met that. Oh, and then that. And then like all the things when you look back, you see how they led to today. But while it's happening, you're like, this sucks. Why am I stuck at home? And I imagine there's some people right now who are like, just like taking the most of what they can get right now and trying to make the most of it. And when they look 10 years back at the line, they're like, oh, you know, when I created that thing, it was because I was stuck at home, and boom, and then boom, and then boom. And so I imagine that there's some new, like me right now with the young men, right now, you and I are having this talk, you and I one-on-one. There should be 8 young men in this room. You want to talk about like deep down, like mask off, like I'm a little frustrated, you know, like I'm smiling about it, but deep down I'm like, oh, just wait till this call is over. wait, I'm gonna text him. I'm gonna text him, and I'm realizing that that's some of the thing. Maybe this is exactly what needs to be happening with these young men. Maybe right now, what I need to be trying to do is have one-on-one talks with every one of them, like this, and getting really real. Right? I want to have the groups. I want to set the groups up, and I think the groups are very important. But maybe for some of them, they just need to have a one-on-one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know,
That
I
makes
think
sense.
that we need what we just did, what you just did, and thinking about that story of those dots that got put together, right? Maybe that's what some of the other, like Victor, who was talking about his situation with his dad, like, just trying to process it, right? Trying to process it. Like, where do you get a chance to process some of the stuff that we're thinking about, going through, dealing with, in a way where you don't feel judged, where you feel like somebody's really listening, really sees you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the best way that we can that I really see times that I help with people trying to reflect and connect these thoughts on their lives was like mainly like being able to listen in a way that was not showing judgment at all. So I was doing, I don't know, masterclass.
Mm.
I now I have the subscription for masterclass, and there is a course inside it from this F that I forgot the name. He's a hostage negotiator in FBI. Um, it's called Chris Voss,
Oh
and he
yeah.
was talking about like, yeah, I
Yeah.
will check it out.
Yeah.
So he has this course of negotiation, and I didn't use for negotiation at all. I use it like his techniques to try to gather the most from other people listening to their stories, like to really understand different stories. Like for example, I was when I was in Medellin at the academy program, like last 1 month ago. I was talking with this friend that he was like very in a very very bad situation with a lot of things happening to him, like with some relationship problems, and I didn't say one advice because he didn't need to receive advice. He wanted to talk, and while he was talking, he was connecting the dots on his head, and like one of the things that Chris Voss says that I was trying to use is like this thing called tactical empathy. That is like really trying to understand and asking questions. I really like one of the parts of the course that he says it's important to not when someone explains some situation, you do not ask why the person did something, because why sometimes is very like if you are attacking that person somehow, and then instead using how or what, for example, and like using these techniques from him. I was not using like for negotiation, that was the name of the course, but I was mainly using to understand the other human being that was in the same course as me. It was my roommate, it was someone that was dealing with issues, and I was really trying to be there for him, listening to him, using the techniques to really provide the best listening experience that he could have on that day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's a great. I think I just listened to his TED talk about don't split the difference. And he talked
Oh,
about like he used it with his sister. I think he used it with his sister, right? Who was mad at a party and was just venting on everybody, and he just took it in, and then she wrote him a letter the next day saying, I was all beating up on you, and you just listened, right? Like that. That's really powerful, right? The connecting
yeah.
dots.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like when people have a discussion or something like that, they think that there's something that they need to win on the situation. And when you are calm and just listening, you show that there's not a competition right here. We are. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to listen to you. I'm trying to not compete with you somehow. I don't want to prove a point for you. I
Yeah.
want to find a solution together. I want to find a common benefit for both of us.
That's
Like he saw, I didn't watch that talk, but you talking about the party and his sister or daughter?
his sister, it was like I think it was
Yeah.
Thanksgiving or something, some holiday they had, and his sister was like, it was Chris Voss. He was saying, and I knew either it was him or he was telling her about him or his friend, but somebody did. They at the party, instead of them trying to like win the argument, they just like listened, and they were like listening, and they were asking questions. And the next day, I mean, the sister wrote a letter saying, I was attacking you, and you didn't attack back. You listened, and I really needed that, right? So it's just like that idea is like it can work anywhere. It can work with family, it can work with friends, at work, and in hostage negotiation situations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it has the power to work, and I think that's beautiful, you know. And I think that maybe that's what we all want, right? I think we all want it. Sometimes we may want it, but we don't know how to ask for it. So something that comes out in a really way, and we're like, people feel like we're attacking, but we're really asking for, we really want to be heard. And so sometimes when we don't know that we want to be heard, we may attack, we may bite, we may bark. When I'm just trying to let you see there's something stuck in my foot here, but you're not seeing it. So I gotta like get louder and louder and louder. Like so babies do, they cry for it, right? For attention, right? So man, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm
Okay,
really
thank you.
excited. I think you know, I think even though without us even going into this idea of the mask off, it was a very powerful conversation. And I think that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing and for putting the dots together.
Yeah, you for sure put my thoughts together too right now. And thank you so much.
Right on, brother.